Confirmation bias in art history, why we see what we want to see. Recent research has shown that art historians are not particularly good at recognizing confirmation bias. So the goal of this video is to overview how confirmation bias can distort our thinking in art history. Becoming more aware of confirmation bias helps you develop the critical thinking skills to identify it in research when you encounter it, and hopefully in your own work as well. So what is confirmation bias in art history? For an example, let's turn to the way confirmation bias might have shaped how classical sculpture was viewed over the last several centuries. To offer some quick background, during the Renaissance, artists were inspired by sculptures from antiquity, as you probably know, and in particular sought to emulate their naturalistic depiction of the body's form, as we see in this famous sculpture by Michelangelo of the Slave. Although some sculptures that survived from antiquity still showed traces of paint, on many the paint had mostly disappeared over the course of centuries, as you would guess, 2,500 years later, right? When Johann Winckelmann, and some would even argue he's the founder of art history, such was his influence, wrote about classical sculpture in this work published in 1764, he established a frame of reference through which ancient art was viewed across Europe. The whiteness of the sculpture is seen as a strong part of its allure, and this passage is only one of many from his influential work that constructs whiteness as a key attribute of the classical past. Thus, while describing Parian marble, Winckelmann can be translated as, and as its color resembles that of pure white skin, it has also obtained the preference, explaining why Parian marble was so popular. This interpretation of ancient aesthetics shaped classical art. Neoclassical art was hugely popular in Europe from about the mid-18th through the early 19th centuries, and misconceived assumptions about the sculpture of ancient Greece and Rome, being monochromatically white, shaped the neoclassical sculptures that were being made at that time, such as those by this Italian artist Canova that you might have seen, or closer to home of this sculpture by Hiram Powers that even festoons our president, Andrew Jackson, with an awesome little swag of classical drapery. Seeing these blindingly white neoclassical sculptures then, in turn, reinforced the perception that classical sculpture was intended to be monochromatic as well. Looking at the situation today, this earlier insistence on the whiteness of the classical past has possibly even inspired the works being appropriated by white supremacist groups, as we see in this poster. Now, based on overwhelming evidence from the careful analysis of trace elements of pigments that linger on classical sculptures, the consensus in art history has definitely shifted. It's widely accepted that these sculptures were originally painted with vivid hues that must have looked beautiful in the Mediterranean light. These reconstructions might look a little strange because our expectations have been based on prior ideas of ancient art shaped by confirmation bias. To sum up, even as more research emerged that the sculptures of Greece and Rome were accented with vivid colors, this point of view did take a long time to be fully accepted because of widely held ideas, illustrating an instance of how confirmation bias shaped the way the past has been interpreted and even repurposed in the present. Now that we've explored how confirmation bias can distort research, what steps can help you identify it as you encounter new information and avoid it in your own thinking? Even though it goes against all of the instincts that make us prone to confirmation bias, try to consider alternative points of view and what evidence would support those perspectives. Research shows that the more the conclusion feels like it matters to you, like it shapes who you are, the more prone we are to reject any alternative interpretations of evidence. Because this video is just a quick introduction to a complex topic, you might want to check out other resources, such as the book Thinking Fast and Slow, which is an amazing book, to learn more about confirmation bias as well as other challenges to clear critical thinking.